I never thought a snowplow would become the center of a legal nightmare that would eventually shut down the main road through our entire neighborhood and land 3 people in police custody. But here we are. My name is Samuel Zimmerman, and I live in a rural area just outside of Montpelier, Vermont, where winter is not just a season but a way of life. I bought my property 5 years ago, a beautiful 10-acre spread with a workshop, a barn, and enough space to run my small excavation and snow removal business. The location was perfect, sitting at the top of a steep hill that overlooked the valley below. What I did not realize when I signed the papers was that my property bordered a small development called Pine Ridge Estates, a pretentious collection of 12 oversized homes that thought they were better than everyone else in our rural community. The development had its own homeowner association, which I was thankfully not part of since my property predated their existence by about 40 years. My house was grandfathered in, sitting on the original farmland that had been divided up over the decades. The HOA had no jurisdiction over me whatsoever, a fact that would become increasingly important as this story unfolded. For the first 3 winters, everything was fine. I ran my business, plowed driveways for paying customers throughout the county, and generally kept to myself. The road that ran past my property and through Pine Ridge Estates was maintained by the town, though admittedly, they were not always prompt about it. The hill leading up to my place was particularly treacherous, with a steep grade that could become deadly when ice formed. The trouble started in November of last year when a woman named Patricia Henderson moved into one of the larger homes in Pine Ridge Estates. She was exactly what you would picture when someone says, HOA president. Middle-aged, with that distinctive haircut that seemed to defy both gravity and good taste, driving a white Lexus SUV, and carrying an attitude that suggested the world owed her something. Within 2 weeks of moving in, she had somehow gotten herself elected as the new HOA president, pushing out the previous guy who had been pretty reasonable. The first snow of the season came in early December, dumping about 8 inches overnight. I was up at 4 in the morning, like always, getting my plow truck ready to service my clients. My truck was a beast, a 2018 Ford F350 with a commercial-grade plow setup that I had customized myself. I had paid good money for it, and it was essential to my livelihood. I had just finished my own driveway and was about to head out when I saw a white Lexus struggling to make it up the hill. The town had not plowed yet, and the incline was slippery. I watched as Patricia's SUV slid backward, tires spinning uselessly. Being a decent neighbor, I grabbed my shovel and some salt and walked down to help. "Morning," I called out. "Need a hand?" She rolled down her window, and I got my first good look at her. She had that pinched expression of someone who was perpetually dissatisfied with everything. "This road is absolutely unacceptable," she snapped, not even acknowledging my offer. "Someone needs to plow this immediately." "Town usually comes through by 8 or 9, I said. "I can throw some salt down to help you get up the hill if you want." "I need to get to work now," she said. "I am a very important person with very important responsibilities." I bit back a laugh. "Well, I can salt it, but that's about all I can do right now. I have paying customers waiting." She looked at my truck, then back at me. "You have a plow?" "Yes, madam, for my business." "Then plow the road." I blinked. "The town handles this road. I do not plow public roads, only private driveways and parking lots." "I live here," she said, as if that explained everything. "We all pay property taxes. You should plow this road." "Again, that is the town's job." "I have customers waiting who actually pay me." Her face turned red. "This is completely unacceptable. I will be speaking to the HOA about this." I shrugged. "You do that. I am not part of your HOA, though, so I am not sure what that will accomplish. I salted the area around her tires and gave her car a push, which was enough to get her moving. She drove off without a thank you, and I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was on official Pine Ridge Estates HOA letterhead, signed by Patricia Henderson, president. The letter informed me that as a neighbor and community member, I was expected to plow the hill and the main road through their development whenever snow fell. It was my civic duty and would foster good relationships within the community. I read it twice, then tossed it in the recycling. I was not plowing a public road for free. My business operated on thin margins as it was, and fuel, maintenance, and wear and tear on my equipment were not cheap. Besides, the town was responsible for that road. If they were not doing it fast enough, that was an issue to take up with the town council, not with me. The next snowfall came a week later, another 6 inches. I did my job, plowed my paying customers, and ignored the road past my property except for my own driveway entrance. By noon, I had 3 voicemails from Patricia demanding I plow immediately. I deleted them. That evening, she showed up at my door with 2 other people, a man and a woman who I later learned were Jim and Susan Crawford, board members of the HOA. "We need to talk," Patricia said when I opened the door. "About what?" "About you refusing to plow our road." I leaned against the door frame. "It is not your road. It is a town road, and I am not plowing it for free." Jim stepped forward. He was a thin guy with glasses, the kind who probably got picked last for dodgeball. "We could pay you something," he offered, finally, something reasonable. "My rate for commercial work is $150 an hour, 2-hour minimum, plus fuel surcharge." Patricia's eyes nearly popped out of her head. "That is robbery. That is business. I have commercial insurance, equipment costs, and my time is valuable. You want a service, you pay for it." "The town should be doing this," Susan chimed in. She was younger, maybe early 30s, wearing workout clothes despite it being freezing outside. "I agree completely. Have you talked to them?" "They said the road is on their schedule and they get to it when they get to it," Patricia said. "That is unacceptable. We have important jobs and lives." "Then hire a service. There are 3 other plow companies in the county. We called them. They all want similar rates or will not take us on mid-season." "So you thought you would just demand I do it for free?" Patricia drew herself up. "We are prepared to offer you $50 per plowing." I actually laughed. $50? It would cost me more than that in fuel alone. "No. You are being completely unreasonable," she said, her voice rising. "We are your neighbors. You should want to help us. If you want to be good neighbors, stop trying to get free labor out of me. Now, if you will excuse me, I have work to do." I closed the door on her sputtering protests. Through the window, I watched them march back to their cars, Patricia gesturing wildly as she talked to the other 2. Things escalated from there. I started receiving multiple letters per week from the HOA, each more demanding than the last. They cited made-up ordinances, threatened to report me to authorities, and even suggested they would sue me for negligence. I showed the letters to my lawyer, a guy named Tom Rodriguez who I had known since high school. He read through them and chuckled. "This is all nonsense. They have no legal standing whatsoever. You are not part of their HOA and you have no obligation to plow a public road." "Can they actually sue me?" "They can file a lawsuit, sure. Anyone can file anything. But it would be dismissed immediately. Keep the letters, though. If they keep harassing you, we might have grounds for a restraining order." I took his advice and kept everything. Meanwhile, winter was getting worse. Vermont was having a particularly brutal season, with snowfall well above average. The town was stretched thin, and the road through Pine Ridge Estates was indeed not getting plowed as quickly as the residents would have liked. My hill, in particular, was becoming a problem. In late January, Patricia showed up at my door again, this time alone. Her expression was different, less aggressive and more calculated. "I want to make you a reasonable offer," she said. "I am listening. $200 per snow event. You plow the main road through the development and the hill up to your property." "How much road are we talking about?" "About a mile total." I did the math in my head. A mile of road, with the hill being particularly difficult, would take me at least 2 hours in heavy snow, probably more. With fuel and wear and tear, $200 would leave me with maybe $50 profit for 2 to 3 hours of work. I made better money on driveways. Not interested. "What would it take?" "I already told you. My commercial rate." Her fake, pleasant expression vanished. "You are being ridiculous." "Fine. We will find another solution." She left, and I thought maybe they would finally hire someone else or work something out with the town. Instead, what they did was way worse. 2 weeks later, I got a visit from the Montpelier Code Enforcement Office. A tired-looking guy named Dave showed up at my door with a clipboard. "Mr. Zimmerman, I need to inspect your property. We have received multiple complaints about zoning violations." "What violations?" he read from his clipboard. "Operating a commercial business in a residential zone, equipment storage violations, potential environmental hazards from fuel storage and excessive noise." I stared at him. "I have operated this business for 5 years without any issues. I have all my permits. Can I see them?" I showed him everything. My business license, my zoning permit that allowed for a home-based business, my environmental compliance documents for my fuel tank, all of it. Dave went through everything methodically, then inspected my property. After 2 hours, he shook his head. "You are completely in compliance with everything. Whoever filed these complaints was wasting everyone's time. Let me guess. Pine Ridge Estates, HOA," he glanced at his clipboard. "I cannot say, but the complaints came from multiple residents at the same address block." After he left, I called Tom again. "They are filing false complaints now. Document everything. If they keep it up, we will take action." But the complaints did not stop. Over the next month, I had visits from the health department, the fire marshal, and even the state environmental agency. Every single inspection found nothing wrong, but each one cost me time and stress. I was spending more time dealing with bureaucrats than running my business. Meanwhile, the weather was getting worse. A particularly bad storm hit in mid-February, dumping nearly 2 feet of snow over 3 days. The town was completely overwhelmed, and many secondary roads, including the one through Pine Ridge Estates, were not plowed for almost a week. The hill up to my property became essentially impassable. I had a 4-wheel drive truck and could get in and out with difficulty, but regular cars had no chance. The Pine Ridge residents were furious, and their anger was directed at me. I started getting hate mail mixed in with the official HOA letters. Someone left a dead squirrel in my mailbox. My tires were slashed one night while I was sleeping, costing me $800 for replacements. I called the police about the vandalism. The responding officer was sympathetic, but said without evidence, there was not much they could do. I installed security cameras around my property after that. The tipping point came in late February. Patricia showed up at my door with what she called her final offer. She was accompanied by Jim and 2 other board members I had not met before. $500 per month flat rate for the rest of winter and all of next winter. You keep the hill and main road plowed. I thought about it. It was still underpriced for the amount of work, but at least it was something. Who pays if someone gets hurt? What about liability? We will add you to our insurance. I need that in writing from your insurance company, and I need a proper contract that spells out exactly what I am responsible for." Patricia's expression soured. "We are not jumping through hoops for you. Then no deal. I am not exposing myself to liability without proper coverage. You know what?" She stepped closer, jabbing her finger at my chest. "You are going to plow that road. If you refuse, we will make your life so miserable you will wish you had just helped your neighbors like a decent human being." I stepped back. "Are you threatening me?" "I am promising you that we will use every legal means at our disposal to force compliance. Get off my property." They left, but Patricia's words stuck with me. Every legal means. I had a bad feeling about what was coming next. Sure enough, a week later, I got served with a lawsuit. Pine Ridge Estates HOA was suing me for negligence, claiming that my refusal to plow the road had caused hardship and danger to the residents. They were seeking damages of $50,000 plus attorney fees. I immediately called Tom. He read through the complaint and shook his head. "This is frivolous, completely without merit, but we will have to respond and go through the process." "How much will that cost me?" "A few thousand in legal fees, probably. We can countersue for malicious prosecution and harassment, though." "Do it." We filed our response, denying all claims and filing a countersuit for harassment, defamation, and abuse of process. We asked for damages and attorney fees. I thought maybe that would make them back off, but it only made things worse. The harassment intensified. I got calls at all hours. More complaints were filed with every agency imaginable. Someone spray-painted "Plow the Road" on my barn door. My business started suffering because I was spending so much time dealing with this nonsense that I was turning down jobs. Then, in early March, we got hit with the storm of the decade. The Weather Service had been warning about it for days. A massive system that was going to dump 3 to 4 feet of snow with high winds and dangerous cold. The governor declared a state of emergency and told everyone to stay home. I prepped my equipment and stocked up on supplies. When the snow started falling, it was relentless. I have lived in Vermont my entire life and rarely seen anything like it. The wind created massive drifts and visibility was nearly zero. On the second day of the storm, my phone rang. It was Patricia. "You need to plow the road now," she demanded. "Are you serious? There is a state of emergency. No one should be going anywhere. I have to get to work." "No, you do not. Everything is closed. Stay home." "I am not asking you, I am telling you. Get out here and plow this road." I hung up on her. She called back immediately. I did not answer. She left a voicemail threatening legal action, community action, and vaguely threatening my business. The storm continued for another day. When it finally passed, the accumulation was staggering. My driveway had drifts over 6 feet tall. The hill down to the main road was completely buried, and the road itself was impassable. The town had declared that it would take days to clear all the roads, prioritizing emergency routes first. I spent 2 days just clearing my own property and helping my immediate neighbors who were elderly and needed assistance. I then started working through my client list, focusing on people who had medical needs or emergencies. I was working 16-hour days. The Pine Ridge Road was not touched. The town had not gotten to it, and I certainly was not going to do it for free, especially after everything they had put me through. The hill, in particular, was a nightmare. The snow had compacted and started to ice over. Without treatment, it was going to become a skating rink. A week after the storm, I got another visit from Patricia. She looked disheveled, which was unusual for her. Her perfect hair was slightly messy and she seemed frazzled. "The road is impassable," she said without preamble. "I know, the town is working on it. They said it will be another week before they get to us. We have been snowed in for 10 days. Same as a lot of people. You could help us right now, I crossed my arms, for my rate. We will pay $300. It is going to take me at least 6 hours to properly clear that road and the hill, probably more. That hill needs to be scraped down to pavement and sanded, or someone is going to die on it. My rate is $150 an hour. That is $900. That is what it costs. You have been harassing me for months, filing false complaints, vandalizing my property, and suing me. You think I am going to give you a discount? Her face went through several shades of red. You are extorting us. No, I am charging my standard rate. You can hire someone else or wait for the town. Your choice. Fine, we will pay it. I was honestly surprised. Get me a written agreement signed by all board members that includes a liability waiver and payment in full upfront. That is ridiculous. Those are my terms. She stormed off. An hour later, Jim showed up with a handwritten agreement and $900 in cash. The agreement was sloppy, but it covered the basics. I looked it over, had Jim sign it, and took the money. When can you start? He asked. Tomorrow morning, weather permitting. He looked relieved. Thank you. Some of us are completely out of food. We have been stuck in our houses for over a week. I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it was hard to feel too bad given how they had treated me. Why did you not stock up before the storm? They warned everyone. Patricia said we should not have to because you would be plowing us out. I stared at him. She told you that, he nodded. She said she was going to force you to do it somehow. Some of us wanted to just pay you from the beginning, but she kept saying we should not have to pay for something that should be free. This was insane. You know I have no obligation to plow that road, right? It is a town road, not part of my property or your development. I know that now. But Patricia is very convincing when she wants to be. The next morning, I hooked up my plow and drove down to tackle the Pine Ridge Road. What I found was worse than I expected. The snow had compacted into solid ice in many places. The hill was a sheet of ice with a layer of snow on top. This was going to take way longer than 6 hours. I worked all day scraping, pushing, sanding. By sunset, I had maybe half the road clear. I went home exhausted. The next morning, I went back to finish the job. It took another full day. When I was finally done, the road was passable, but the hill was still treacherous. I had scraped it as much as I could, but there was a layer of ice bonded to the pavement that would not come up without damaging the road. I reported back to Jim. It is as good as I can get it without specialized equipment. That hill needs chemical treatment and probably sand spread with a commercial sander. I do not have that equipment. But we paid you to clear it. I cleared it. The ice underneath is a different problem. The town should treat it. He looked unhappy but paid me another $100 to spread sand on the hill, which I did. It helped, but that hill was still dangerous. For a few weeks, things were relatively quiet. The lawsuit was progressing slowly through the courts. Tom was confident we would prevail. The weather had settled into a more normal pattern, with smaller snowfalls that the town could handle. Then, in late March, we got another surprise storm. This one was not as big, about 8 inches, but it came with freezing rain afterward. The hill became a solid sheet of ice again. The town treated most roads with salt and sand, but they missed the Pine Ridge area because they were focused on main routes. My phone started ringing. Patricia, Jim, Susan, and various other residents all demanding I plow. I ignored most of the calls but finally answered when Jim called. "We need the road cleared," he said. "Then hire me. We already paid you. That was for one storm 2 months ago. This is a new storm. You cannot be serious." "Completely serious. You want me to plow, we need a new agreement." Patricia got on the phone. She must have been with Jim. "You are not getting another dime from us. You will plow that road right now or we will have you arrested." I actually laughed. Arrested for what? Reckless endangerment. You are deliberately leaving the road dangerous. I am not responsible for that road. Call the town. The town said it will be 3 days before they can get here. Then it will be 3 days. She made a sound of pure rage and hung up. I went back to work on my paying customers' properties. Over the next 2 days, the temperature fluctuated, causing the ice on the hill to get even worse. Meltwater during the day would refreeze at night, adding layers. I could see from my property that the hill was essentially a luge run now. No one in Pine Ridge could get in or out unless they had serious 4-wheel drive and studs. On the 3rd day, Patricia called the police. A state trooper showed up at my door. "Mr. Zimmerman, I am Trooper Anderson. I need to talk to you about the road situation." "What about it?" "I have received complaints that you are refusing to clear the road, causing a safety hazard." I explained the entire situation, showed him the documentation, the lawsuit, everything. He listened, looked at the papers, and nodded. "You are not obligated to plow that road. It is a town road and it is their responsibility." "That is what I have been saying. However, if you have been plowing it, even for payment, you might have created an expectation." I felt a chill. "What does that mean?" "It means if you set a precedent of providing a service, even if paid, and then stop, there might be liability issues if someone gets hurt." "That is ridiculous." "I plowed it once 2 months ago after they finally agreed to pay me." "I understand. I am just telling you what a lawyer might argue. My advice: document everything and maybe talk to your lawyer." After he left, I called Tom immediately. "Can they seriously claim I am liable because I plowed once?" "In theory. There is something called voluntary assumption of duty. If you voluntarily take on a responsibility, you might be liable if you do it negligently or abandon it. But in this case, you were paid as a contractor for a specific job. There was no ongoing agreement. You should be fine." "Should be." Law is not always black and white, but I would say you have a very strong case that you have no liability here. That evening, things came to a head. I got a call from a number I did not recognize. When I answered, it was Susan from the HOA. "Someone got hurt," she said, her voice shaking. My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Patricia tried to drive out. She slid on the hill and crashed into a tree. She is in the hospital." "Is she okay?" "Broken arm, some bruises, but she is blaming you. She is telling everyone you are responsible." "I am not responsible. That road is not my problem." "I know, but she is talking about pressing charges, suing you personally, everything." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling sick. I had not wanted anyone to get hurt, but I also had not done anything wrong. They had refused to pay for services, harassed me for months, and expected me to work for free. This was not my fault. The next morning, I got a call from Trooper Anderson again. "I need you to come to the barracks for a statement." "Am I being charged with something?" "No, but Mrs. Henderson is making serious allegations. I need your side of the story on record." I drove to the state police barracks in Montpelier with Tom. We spent 2 hours going over everything. I showed them all the correspondence, the lawsuit, the documentation of harassment, everything. Trooper Anderson took detailed notes. "Between you and me," he said after we finished, "this looks like a civil dispute that she is trying to make into a criminal matter. I do not see any criminal negligence here. You are not responsible for maintaining that road. What happens now? I will file my report. If she wants to pursue charges, it will go to the state attorney, but I doubt they will take it. This is not criminal." I felt some relief, but I knew this was not over. Sure enough, 2 days later, I received notice of an emergency hearing in civil court. Patricia and the HOA were seeking an injunction to force me to plow the road, claiming I was creating a public safety hazard. Tom and I showed up to court on a cold morning in early April. Patricia was there with her arm in a sling, milking the injury for all it was worth. Her lawyer was a slick-looking guy from Burlington named Marcus Stone, who apparently specialized in HOA law. The judge was an older woman named Judge Martha Reeves, who had a reputation for not suffering fools. The hearing started with Stone arguing that I had created a dangerous situation by refusing to maintain the road. "Your Honor, Mr. Zimmerman has the equipment and ability to clear this road. His refusal to do so has resulted in my client's injury and has trapped an entire community in their homes. We are asking the court to order him to provide snow removal services at a reasonable rate." Tom stood up. "Your Honor, the road in question is a public road maintained by the town of Montpelier. Mr. Zimmerman is a private citizen running a private business. He has no legal obligation to provide services to anyone, especially not at a rate dictated by the court. The HOA has spent months harassing my client, filing false complaints, vandalizing his property, and now they are trying to use the legal system to force him into unpaid labor." Judge Reeves looked at me. "Mr. Zimmerman, is it true you plowed this road once before?" "Yes, Your Honor." After the major storm in March, they finally agreed to pay my standard rate. I plowed it once as a contractor for a specific job. And after that, there was no ongoing agreement. They have refused to pay my rate for any subsequent work. "What is your rate?" $150 per hour for commercial work. Stone jumped in. "Your Honor, that is an exorbitant rate designed to price gouge desperate people." "It is my standard commercial rate," I said. "The same rate I charge all my commercial clients. I have documentation." Tom handed over copies of my contracts with other clients, showing consistent pricing. Judge Reeves reviewed them. "These rates seem consistent. Mr. Stone, does your client dispute that the road in question is a public road maintained by the town?" "We do not dispute that, Your Honor, but the town has been negligent in their maintenance. Someone needs to address the situation." "Then your dispute is with the town, not with Mr. Zimmerman. I am denying the injunction. Mr. Zimmerman has no obligation to plow a public road, regardless of his business or capabilities." She looked at Patricia. "Mrs. Henderson, if you chose to drive on a dangerous road, that is your decision. You cannot hold a private citizen liable for not providing free services." Patricia stood up, her face red. "This is outrageous. He is deliberately endangering us. Mrs. Henderson, sit down. I have made my ruling. He should be in jail. Sit down now, or I will hold you in contempt." Patricia sat, but she was shaking with rage. The hearing ended, and as we left the courtroom, she followed us into the hallway. "This is not over," she hissed at me. "I will make sure you lose everything." Tom stepped between us. "Mrs. Henderson, you need to stop. Any further harassment will result in additional legal action." "I am not harassing anyone. I am exercising my rights." A court officer approached. "Is there a problem here?" "No," Tom said. "We are leaving." We got out of there, but I felt uneasy. Patricia had a look in her eyes that was almost unhinged. This woman was not going to let this go. Over the next week, the weather warmed up. Spring was finally coming, and the snow was melting. The ice on the hills slowly disappeared as temperatures stayed above freezing. The immediate problem was resolving itself naturally, but the legal problems were far from over. The original lawsuit was still pending, and Tom told me we had a court date set for May. Meanwhile, I was still dealing with occasional harassment. Someone had filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, which I had to respond to. Someone left a nasty review of my business online, claiming I was unethical and dangerous, which I had to fight to get removed. The stress was affecting my health. I was not sleeping well, and I had lost weight from the constant anxiety. My business was suffering too. Several potential clients had seen the negative reviews or heard about the lawsuit and decided to go with other providers. I was losing money at a rate I could not sustain. In mid-April, something strange happened. I got a call from Jim Crawford. "I need to talk to you in person," he said. "Can I come by?" I guess. He showed up an hour later, looking nervous. "I need to tell you something, but I need your word it stays between us for now." "I cannot promise that without knowing what it is." He took a deep breath. "Patricia has been using HOA funds inappropriately. A lot of money has gone missing, and some of us have started asking questions." My interest was piqued. "How much money?" "Over $40,000. She has been writing checks to herself, claiming they are for HOA expenses, but we have no documentation. No receipts, no invoices, nothing." "Why are you telling me?" "Because I feel terrible about how this whole thing has gone. Some of us never wanted to fight with you. Patricia pushed it, and she made it seem like if we did not back her, she would make our lives hell too. But now we are finding out she has been stealing from us, and I think the whole road plowing thing was partly to distract from that." This was interesting. "What are you going to do?" "We are calling an emergency HOA meeting next week to vote her out. But I thought you should know. It might help with your lawsuit." After he left, I called Tom and told him everything. He was very interested. "If we can show she was acting in bad faith, using the HOA to pursue a personal vendetta while embezzling from them, that strengthens our case significantly. See if you can get documentation of the missing funds." A week later, I heard from Jim again. The emergency meeting had been a disaster. Patricia had refused to provide accounting records and had actually called the police on the other board members, claiming they were trespassing in her home where the meeting was being held. The police had sorted it out, but it had ended with several board members resigning and Patricia technically still in charge, though she now had almost no support. Then things got even more interesting. In early May, the Vermont Attorney General's office contacted me. Apparently, one of the former board members had filed a complaint about the missing HOA funds, and they were investigating. They wanted to know about my interactions with Patricia and the HOA. I spent an afternoon with an investigator named Sarah Chen, walking her through everything. The harassment, the false complaints, the attempts to force me to work for free, all of it. She took copious notes. "This is a pattern we have seen before," she said. "HOA presidents with too much power and not enough oversight, it usually ends badly. What happens now? We continue investigating. If we find evidence of embezzlement or fraud, we will pursue charges." Our civil court date arrived in mid-May. The snow was long gone, and Vermont was in full spring bloom. The case was being heard by Judge Reeves again, which Tom said was good for us. Stone argued that I had breached an implied contract and that my negligence had caused Patricia's accident. He presented medical bills and claimed emotional distress damages. Tom countered with our evidence of harassment, the frivolous complaints, the vandalism, and now the allegations of embezzlement. He argued that Patricia had been pursuing a vendetta against me and had caused her own accident by driving recklessly on a dangerous road. "Your Honor," Tom said, "Mr. Zimmerman is not responsible for maintaining public infrastructure. The plaintiff has spent months trying to force him to provide free labor, and when that failed, she tried to force him through the legal system. This is an abuse of process, plain and simple." Judge Reeves reviewed all the evidence, which took the better part of a day. Finally, she rendered her decision. "I am ruling in favor of the defendant on all counts. Mr. Zimmerman had no duty to plow the road in question." The plaintiff's injuries were the result of her own decision to drive on a dangerous road, not any action or inaction by the defendant. Furthermore, I am awarding the defendant attorney fees and costs, which I calculate at approximately $12,000. She looked at Patricia. Mrs. Henderson, you have wasted this court's time with a frivolous lawsuit. You are lucky I am not sanctioning you further. The defendant is also entitled to pursue his countersuit, which will be scheduled separately. Patricia looked like she was going to explode, but she stayed quiet. We left the courthouse victorious, but I knew she would appeal. Tom said an appeal was likely, but that we had a strong position. 2 weeks later, everything came crashing down for Patricia in a spectacular fashion. The Attorney General's investigation had turned up significant evidence of embezzlement. She had stolen over $50,000 from the HOA over the course of 18 months. Some of it had gone to personal expenses, but a chunk of it had gone to Marcus Stone as legal fees for the lawsuit against me. She was arrested at her home on a Tuesday morning. The charges included embezzlement, fraud, and misuse of HOA funds. Her bail was set at $25,000, which she posted, but the damage was done. The story hit the local news. HOA president arrested for embezzlement after suing neighbor. My phone rang off the hook with reporters wanting comments. Tom advised me to stay quiet, which I did. The criminal case moved forward over the summer. Patricia tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The HOA had hired a forensic accountant who had traced every fraudulent transaction. She had been living beyond her means and had seen the HOA funds as her personal piggy bank. In September, she accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to felony embezzlement and fraud. In exchange for the plea, she got 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, and had to pay back all the stolen money plus penalties. The sentencing hearing was in early October. I attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom. Patricia looked like a shell of her former self. Her lawyer had nothing to say in her defense except to ask for leniency, which the judge did not grant. Mrs. Henderson, Judge Harrison said, this was a different judge who handled criminal cases. You abused a position of trust and used community funds for personal gain. You harassed an innocent man and tried to use the legal system as a weapon. You have shown no remorse and no accountability. I am sentencing you to 18 months in the state correctional facility. Patricia was led away in handcuffs. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I had not wanted things to go this far, but she had brought it all on herself. The HOA formally dissolved after that. There were not enough residents left who wanted to participate, and the legal liability had become too much. The development reverted to being just regular houses on a regular street. The town took over full responsibility for the road, as they should have been all along. My countersuit settled out of court. The HOA's insurance paid out $20,000 for the harassment and damages. I used the money to upgrade my equipment and repair my barn, where the graffiti had damaged the siding. The following winter was blessedly uneventful. The town plowed the road regularly, treating the hill with salt and sand as needed. I ran my business without interference, rebuilding my client base and my reputation. I did get one interesting call in December. It was Jim Crawford. Hey, I wanted to apologize again for everything that happened. A bunch of us never wanted it to go that way. I appreciate that. I also wanted to ask if you would be willing to plow our driveways. Several of us need a regular service and we trust you. I thought about it. These people had been part of the problem, but Jim had also been the one to blow the whistle on Patricia. I can do that. Standard residential rate, which is a lot less than commercial. That is fair. I ended up taking on 5 new clients from the old Pine Ridge development. They paid on time, never complained, and we had a good working relationship. It was funny how things worked out. Looking back on the whole mess, I learned some valuable lessons. First, never let anyone bully you into working for free. Your time and skills have value, and people who do not respect that do not deserve your help. Second, document everything. Every letter, every email, every interaction. You never know when you will need evidence. Third, and most importantly, some people are just not going to be reasonable no matter what you do. Patricia was one of those people. She could have hired me from the beginning for a fair rate, and none of this would have happened. Instead, she chose to fight, to harass, to steal, and to abuse the legal system. In the end, she lost everything. The hill still gets icy in winter. The town treats it now, though sometimes not as quickly as the residents would like. But that is not my problem anymore. I plow my driveway, service my clients, and enjoy the peace and quiet of my property. Sometimes I drive past Patricia's old house. It sold last spring to a young couple with kids. They waved at me the first time we crossed paths. Nice people. The kind of neighbors everyone wishes they had. My business is thriving now. The publicity from the lawsuit, while stressful at the time, actually brought in some new clients who appreciated that I stood up for myself. I have more work than I can handle, and I am considering hiring help for next winter. Tom and I still grab beers occasionally. He loves telling the story to other lawyers. Apparently it has become a bit of a legend in legal circles. The HOA president who embezzled to sue her neighbor for not plowing. It would be funny if I had not lived through it. I never did get my property vandalism solved officially. The slashed tires, the dead squirrel, the graffiti, none of it was ever proven. But I have my suspicions, and I am just glad it stopped after Patricia was arrested. The town actually thanked me, weirdly enough. Apparently the situation had highlighted some issues with their snow removal priority system, and they made changes to ensure secondary roads got better service. The town manager told me that while my situation was unfortunate, it had led to improvements that helped everyone. I ran into Susan from the old HOA board at the grocery store last month. She apologized profusely and told me that several of them had wanted to just pay me from the beginning, but had been afraid to cross Patricia. She said Patricia had a way of making people afraid, using threats and intimidation to get her way. It was a pattern that extended beyond just the road plowing issue. The whole experience made me appreciate the simple things, the ability to run my business without interference. Neighbors who are reasonable and kind. A legal system that, while slow and expensive, ultimately worked correctly. And the satisfaction of knowing that I stood up for myself and won. I still get the occasional call from someone wanting free work. A neighbor asking if I can just quickly plow their driveway since I am already out with my truck. A business owner wondering if I can do their parking lot in exchange for exposure or trade. I politely but firmly decline. I learned my lesson about setting boundaries. The lawsuit and everything that followed taught me that being nice and being a pushover are not the same thing. I can be a good neighbor and a decent person, while still demanding fair compensation for my work. Anyone who does not understand that is not someone I want to do business with anyway. My lawyer Tom made a good point once. He said that Patricia probably targeted me specifically because I seemed like someone who would not fight back. I was quiet, kept to myself, and seemed non-confrontational. She thought she could bully me into compliance. But when I stood my ground, she could not handle it, and she escalated until it destroyed her. There is probably a lesson in there about picking your battles and knowing when someone is bluffing. Patricia was always bluffing. She had no real power over me, no legal standing, nothing. But she acted like she did, and that was enough to intimidate some people. Just not me. The hill still stands, steep and treacherous in winter, peaceful and green in summer. It is just a hill, a piece of geography that happened to be at the center of this whole mess. But every time I drive up or down it, I remember the winter when ice and stubbornness and one woman's greed all collided into a perfect storm of legal chaos. I am glad it is over. I am glad Patricia is facing consequences for her actions. I am glad the road is being properly maintained now. And I am especially glad that I can focus on my business and my life without constantly looking over my shoulder. Last week, I got a letter. It was from Patricia, sent from the correctional facility. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was short. Mr. Zimmerman, I am writing to apologize for my behavior. I was wrong to treat you the way I did. I let my pride and my need for control destroy my life. I hope you can forgive me someday. Patricia. I sat with that letter for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. She had admitted she was wrong, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this, that someone had thrown away their freedom and reputation over something so stupid. I have not written back. I do not know if I will. Maybe someday, but not yet. The wounds are still too fresh, even a year later. But I did frame the judge's ruling from our civil case. It hangs in my workshop now, a reminder that standing up for yourself matters. That you do not have to accept being bullied or manipulated. That the system, for all its flaws, can work. This spring, the town is repaving the road through the old Pine Ridge development, including the hill. They are improving the drainage and the grade, making it safer for everyone. I won my bid to do the excavation work for the project. It is a good contract, fair pay, proper terms, everything done right. I will be spending a lot of time on that hill this spring, reshaping it, making it safer. There is something poetic about that, I think. The hill that caused so much trouble will be transformed into something better. Not by force or demands or lawsuits, but by proper planning, fair compensation, and good work. That is how things should be done. That is how I run my business. And now, finally, that is how this whole mess has ended, with me back in control of my life and my future, one snowplow and one excavator scoop at a time.